Does anyone actually remember 2020? I think I blocked it out completely. I mean, baking, well, burning banana bread, attending Zoom quizzes. Woohoo! Those were the days. But hidden amongst the chaos were two genuinely good things. Electrifying was born. Our pleasure. The second was that Volkswagen launched the ID.3. And, well, 6 years later, countless software updates and, well, a fair bit of depreciation. One of those things is now available for under 10 grand. Stick around to find out how you can grab a bargain used ID.3. And while you're watching, grab your phone, scan the QR code and check that I am indeed telling you the truth. And also, while you're there, you can check out the other used delights that are currently on sale on electrifying.com. The ID.3 has been a big seller, and that means there are plenty of used ones to search for. But the specs are more than a little confusing, with different battery sizes, baffling trim levels, and some potential pitfalls. Now, the earliest cars are now available for well under 5 figures. So while choosing a nearly new model like this will save you thousands off the price list. It's a spacious, well-equipped and efficient car, which is good to drive and has most of the quality that you'd expect from a VW. Tell you what, shall we start with an ID history lesson? So the ID.3 was actually launched in a bit of a hurry. And because of all the global turmoil that was going on, they were kind of short of parts, including chips. Lucky not the potato variety, though. Now, that meant that the early cars were a bit of an odd selection of spec, but then the world got back to normal, thankfully, and other versions were introduced, which made a bit more sense. Now, the ID.3 originally launched with just one battery option, a 58 kilowatt hour pack. They were called the first edition, and they were funky colours with kind of unusual alloys. Then in 2021, the range grew. There was the 45 kilowatt hour battery called the Pure. The 58 was called the Pro or the Pro Performance. And then the biggest 77 kilowatt hour was the Pro S. Pretty simple, right? Until it isn't, because mixed in with this are trim levels like Life, City, Business, Family, Style, Tech, Max, Tour. And it starts to sound less like a car range and more like a travel brochure. Oh, and also, just to confuse everyone, the battery size isn't mentioned anywhere in the name of the car. I mean, that would have been far too straightforward. But classified advert listings must mention it clearly, so make sure you check that one. And let's not forget as well, there are also different power outputs too, just to confuse you. There's also a 4 and a 5 seat option because the big battery, well, it would have been too heavy with a car full of people. But you know what? Rather than trying to decipher all of this, I just suggest you think about how much range and power you need and just start there. I mean, life is complicated enough without needing to memorise Volkswagen trim levels. So these are the figures that you really need to know. The 45 kilowatt hour battery is going to do around 170 miles in the real world. Plenty for the average commuter. The middle, the 58 kilowatt hour model, it has an official range of 261 miles. So I think you can probably rely on about 220 miles in the real world. And then you've got the larger, the 77, that is good for around 250 miles real world. Or maybe a little bit more if you're a careful driver or you're driving on a warm sunny day like today. In terms of charging, all the early ID.3s can take up to 100 kilowatts, with the biggest 77 kilowatt hour battery able to charge at 125 kilowatts. Then charging was improved in 2022. And then again for that big 2024 facelift, bringing charging speeds up to 120 kilowatts for the entry-level model, 170 kilowatt for the bigger batteries, and 185 kilowatts for the GTX range topper. But more importantly, there were software upgrades too. Yes, software. We need to talk about that. Right, behold the screen of doom. Okay, that's probably a bit dramatic, particularly because this isn't actually the screen of doom. This is the upgrade. This is the screen of delight. But if you do have a screen that is only 10 inches, be warned, because the infotainment system and the switches, well, they cause a big headache for VW. The technology was described, actually just the way I described my husband. Immature. Sorry. It was crashy, it was difficult to use, generally a bit obstructive. Oh, also just like my husband. Now, since then, thankfully, VW have sorted the problem. Almost all the bugs, any of those early problems experienced by the early buyers have been fixed, so credit to them. The later models are much improved with hardware too. Although VW have done nothing about my husband. We need to have a word on that. Now, this is a post-2023 car, so it has the newer infotainment system, 12.9 inches. That's the magic number that you want to be looking for. Another thing that I should probably mention is these things down here. So all the woes weren't really helped by these buttons because they're not buttons at all. They are sensors just down here. And they just need a little bit of getting used to. You know, sometimes there might be a little delay, or maybe you're trying to tweak the volume and you haven't quite got the right touch, or you blast the volume accidentally right up and scare someone in the background. Personally, I actually find them okay. I don't think it's a deal breaker. For me, it has put some buyers off. So just make sure that you can live with it and you test it out when you go for a test drive. Also, while you are in here, take a good look around because, well, the quality of the interior is obviously important. And I think that the post-facelift car is better than the early model, which just felt a little bit low rent, particularly in the back, actually. Bit more budget airline. So make sure you check that out and check you're happy with it. The other thing to do is just keep an eye on how much shiny plastic there is. They can sometimes get a bit scuffed, maybe rattle around a bit. So just make sure on your test drive that, you know, you've got no rattly dashboard. You don't want any percussion going off at the front. It's got to be nice and quiet. And yeah, check for scuffs as well. Now, in terms of any other problems, well, the ID.3 has basically been free of major issues. There are a few annoyances which have maybe caused owners the odd headache, including the fact that when the car was first launched, alloy wheels were a bit hard to find. So VW fitted a lot of the early cars with steel rims and plastic covers, even the posher models. Now they can look a bit like a budget hire car, and you might notice that a lot of them are missing because they have a tendency to fly off after hitting a pothole. Some owners have given up completely and keep them in the shed until the time comes to sell the car. They're not cheap, so make sure yours has the official VW ones in place. Another thing you need to look for, battery failures. Not the big one, but this tiny little one, the 12 volt. It controls a relay which switches the main battery on and off, as well as the wipers, heater, fan, radio. And in the case of the ID.3, some cars had an electrical fault that allowed the battery to drain even when the car was switched off. It should have been fixed in an update, but check the car starts properly and doesn't have any error messages, especially if it's been left on for a long time. What about the bigger battery that actually powers the car? Well, all EVs will lose a little bit of range over time. That's totally normal, but the ID.3 doesn't seem to be worse than any others. We checked the state of health figures for a selection that we spotted for sale on the electrifying pages and actually only found one car with less than 90% of its original capacity. And that was a 5-year-old 58 kilowatt hour with 97,000 miles on the clock. With average miles, most seem to lose between 1% and 2% per year. Okay, so when it comes to driving, I mean, the ID.3, it's just always been one of those cars that's easy to get along with. As soon as you jump in, it's just easy from the get-go. Around town, it's smooth, it's quiet, it's surprisingly nippy. You put your foot down, pulls away with that effortless electric shove. You know, you could really kind of nip around and find the gaps in between the traffic. I mean, you look around, visibility is great, turning circle is impressive, so it's a doddle to park. I think it feels like you're driving a smaller car than it actually is. If you're on faster roads, then it settles down nicely, it's comfortable, probably not that sporty. It's actually quite quiet as well. I mean, you know, on roads, I've really noticed that you don't get that much wind noise, even at higher speeds. And it does just soak up the joyful potholes that we have to put up with in the UK without constantly sort of fidgeting around. When it comes to the regen, well, you're basically a little bit limited. You've got B mode. So you've got no sort of driving modes to choose from really, apart from drive or the B mode. If you pop it into B mode, you can see how it kind of kicks in, and we will find out whether or not it is one pedal driving. Almost. Pretty much brings you to a standstill there. Now there is a little bit of body roll through the corners, but nothing to worry about really, unless you're trying to pretend you're a hot hatch, then this is a great, very family-friendly car to drive. Are you still with me? I'm impressed if you are. Do let me know in the comments below. I might send you a little gold star to say well done. We are now on to the important bit of running costs. How much is it actually going to cost to keep on the road? Well, good news, not a fortune. Insurance is pretty reasonable. So the entry-level model starts insurance group 18, pretty low for an EV. Even the sporty GTX is only group 33. Not bad for something with that performance. Servicing, nice and easy. Only every 2 years, no mileage limited. So that's one less trip to the garage that you need to worry about. Now, once it's over 3 years old, you still need that MOT though. Nice try. Don't forget that one. Brake pads. Now, thanks to the regen braking, they can actually last 50,000 miles or even longer. So that's a win. Your tyres, however, that's the thing that's taking all the punishment. If you've gone for the standard 18-inch wheels, replacement tyres are fairly sensible. However, maybe you treated yourself, you little devil, to the 20-inch alloys. Well, prepare yourself, because a decent tyre can cost you 250 quid or more per tyre. So suddenly those potholes, well, they become a little bit personal, don't they? And you might be thinking, do you know what? I'm going to go for the cheaper tyres. However, they can wear out faster, and that then knocks your efficiency. So sometimes actually buying cheap can sometimes become the expensive option. How annoying is that? So which model should you choose? Well, that's going to be partly down to your budget, of course, but an early car would make a great inexpensive runaround or even a first car. For most buyers, the 58 kilowatt hour Pro models are the most available on the used market and also offer the best balance of price, range and usability. For the earlier cars, a Life or Style trim is good value and has a reasonable balance of kit. The post-facelift models like this one have a nicer interior, better tech and faster charging. So I'd say the Pro Match, like this one here, is the pick of the range if you can afford to go newer. So there you have it. You made it to the end. Well done. Now you are fully equipped. You know everything about buying a used ID.3. And whether you are buying your first EV or maybe you're upgrading or looking for a run around for the school run or station duty, it's a great option. It's really lovely to drive, nice and easy to drive. It's spacious enough for the family, it's efficient, it's pretty cheap to run, and most importantly, there are no horrific skeletons in the reliability closet. Maybe it took a bit of time to get right at the start, but I think the ID.3 is proof that maybe some good things did happen in 2020 after all. And here's a reminder, do scan that QR code because that gives you the opportunity to see and search for all the used EVs on electrifying.com.